May your wax and newspapers be caught in your gapers, ensuring the vapors, the drop and the gount. With your medical potions, your syrups and lotions, installing the notions all finely put out. Who can tell the true physic from all that's pathetic? And give to the devil cramp, colic, and spleen. And I know what you think if you take a big drink with your mouth to the brink of a jog of pachin. So stick to the creature, the best thing in nature, for sinking your sorrows and raising your joys. Oh, nothing like a whiskey to make maidens frisky. It soon separates all the men from the boys. What's up, y'all? Feeling a little bit better. My family just took me out to IHOP. We ate a bunch of food. Had a good time. Love you, Dad. So, yeah. Last episode was such dog shit. I'm so sorry. But it was coming off the cusp of a very good episode. So, you know, one of my best episodes, one of my shittiest episodes. Now this, hopefully, it'll be nice and balanced. Right. And Lou, the last episode, I just wanted to say all women are queens. But, yeah, it is what it is. The thing that Obama was denied that made him crazy, that he wrote about in his memoir, I had in spades. Lucky me. I was a big proponent of appreciating the beauty of European women in the Kiwi Farms chat. And it was a really good balance to the radioactive incel, homo sadist energy that permeates these sectors, especially through the merger of Kiwi Farms and Wizard Chan. Wizard, in this context, means somebody over the age of like 35 who has never had sex, you know, literally venerating the phenomenon, the strange, paradoxical phenomenon of the 40-year-old virgin that is like involuntarily celibate. At that point, it's just you, my man. But at the same time, it's about the attitude, right? So if all you ever do is resent women, all you ever do is expect women to do better than you do, then, and you don't even have like an appreciation for what a real woman actually is, right? Then you're just going to end up one of those pathetic Andrew Tate types. Really, Andrew Tate types are some of the most pathetic fucking losers to ever exist. And it just goes to show, you know, it's what you get when you actually genuinely don't appreciate women, but you want it for the transactional nature out of it, like you want everything else. The hustler is ultimately one of the saddest people in society, and that's just how it is. You know, you'd want to avoid that. You do not want to raise your kids to do whatever the hell they want and then keep a life insurance policy on them so that they can end up being like little hellions, potentially getting themselves killed and potentially getting you a paycheck. That is that's a structure I see a lot of today, and that's a bad structure. Inshallah, I shall throw my shoe at you. Allah. Inshallah, Tim Fool will have a taste of my shoe. You really hate to see women who've been abused, and they usually have like meaningless scribbles all over themselves with no artistic merit, and they claim BPD even though there's not really much of evidence that BPD is anything but crazy bitch syndrome. Sorry. That doesn't mean that the woman is inherently flawed. That's the whole thing, is like BPD isn't real, just like ADD isn't necessarily something that's caused by anything other than long-term petroleum-based food dyes and like TV flashing 50 different commercials at you in a form of an hour, and like all that differentials and a lack of valuing because you're working, right? When you're working at your dad's like artisan shop or out in the fields, you're going to remember these things because they're grounded, they're real, that you see them every day, and like that will stack into a sane mentality. But if you're in this modern bullshit, radio, TV, internet, and it's unstructured because the people who introduced it to you themselves are unstructured, you're gonna have a horrible time. And the same with the BPD shit is like, yeah, BPD is likely directly caused, like ADD is directly caused by television, things like dating apps and shit. That's definitely when the term took off, didn't it? Didn't it? We didn't have BPD back in the 80s and 90s. That isn't just because we didn't have a term for crazy bitch syndrome. It's just crazy bitch syndrome that hurts people yet simultaneously has a was that fear of abandonment is that fear of abandonment is natural, but like they're pushing people away constantly deliberately because they have dating app mindset, right? So that's something to dissect over a much, much larger period. But you really hate to see when women are abused. You really hate to see it. Kings. That might not be the perfect woman for you, but go ahead and if you're having trouble, if you're turning into the 30-year-old virgin, go find a woman that's been up that road. Treat her right. You know, you might just find out she can turn from a 5 to an 8, no problem. Not saying that's, that is a strat, but it's not something is best termed that way. Just find a woman and help her maximize her potential, and then you'll maximize your potential. But if you maximize your potential and you have a woman in your life, you're helping her maximize her potential. And if she can't jive with that, if she can't jive with you being the person who, okay, so she presides over the interior of the household and it demands respect. Demands respect. She wants, especially when she's pregnant, she wants something in the kitchen and it's affordable and reasonable. Don't you get picky as a man. That's not your place. She decides, right? And so you don't decide, oh, I want more unhealthy hedonic food. She decides, and then you decide how the household, what direction the household is going in the long term. So you get to choose the culture, you get to choose the religion, straight up. She gets to choose what goes in your stomach, so that's a big thing. Like if you gotta find you a girl that cooks how you like, or who's willing to learn, but you can't just demand that the heart of the home, the kitchen, and all the interior decorating, and the bedroom, and the bathrooms, and all of that, you can't decide that as a guy. That's the woman's domain. Ultimately, she's dependent on you to have enough money to pick what she wants, but still, you decide the direction of the household. She decides what the household looks like. And guess what? Ladies are much better at that anyways. Like the gay guys that have like put so much interior decorating in their head, they usually have a very basic bitch sense of interior design and then nothing else. And I can't think of a worse nightmare than being a homosexual man, but that's neither here nor there. Like, you've literally taken the direction of your life and you've consecrated it to being like just jacking off constantly and being a complete fucking waste. So I make no apologies to homosexuals. I don't. Sorry. Get over yourselves. Basically, get over yourself. And if you can't take the criticism, get the fuck over yourself, right? Anyways, made in Israel. You might as well say made with Palestinian slave labor. I got a shirt over there that's made in Israel. It's one of the worst designed shirts that I have, but it's likely made with Palestinian slave labor in the West Bank, not with bony, weak little fingers of IDF soldiers, right? There's an actual legitimate Freudian conspiracy involving elevation of incest as a ritual, and you'll see this spattered through the pornography institutions as well as through history with Frankism and with both Freudian and Hollywood, its evolution, psychology insisting that people have sex with their family members. This is actually a religious ritual. And I don't know if the religious ritual started with inbreeding, right? So like Noah, if you know this whole story of Noah, there's always a question of there, how did he repopulate off of just of his family? There's also the thing where they brought in another person and then the barren womb was healed and all this stuff like that. You can get into the weeds of that. We used to have a little bit of a Noahide inclination. Actually, there was about 2 or 3 years in my life where I was considered a Judeo-Christian or Christian Zionist, like quite literally going to a church dedicated to a Zionist form of Christianity for like 2 or 3 years when I was growing up. I didn't learn next to nothing, but it did give my family a few directions, and we followed like the Noahide direction and stuff like that. And yeah, when you get deep and deep and deep into the history, you find out, no, this shit's really wacky and really messed up, and the consequences of it are having gigantic ears and gigantic noses and all, like, can't eat certain types of food and have all sorts of genetic problems. And as much as you could like, if you're born healthy enough, as much as you could biohack your ability to avoid consequences and not dream and not have any moral inclination and not have shame, you can't hack away your genetic issues. If you're a CRISPR test tube baby, you're not going to pass through the amniotic fluid. You're going to have a ton of issues when it comes to the fact that you were born up out of a lab. You weren't born in the real world. So you're designated to be a half bubble boy. You know what I'm saying? Sucks. Oh, I'm so full of pancakes. I don't get the Germa hype, man. It's lame. Lame shit. Now, food review, bro. That's a vibe. And the thing about views themselves is that they're unsubstantial. If they're views from children who don't remember anything, then they don't matter at all. So you have these videos that are targeting children that have tens of millions of views, but the child, the teenager, the young person, they won't remember it 2 to 4 years in the future. It might linger a little bit, but the entire nature of being young in the modern world and being attached to a tablet or a phone from a young age is that, like, you have extreme attention deficit and you can't remember anything. And how like Null was suffering, you know, like, you legitimately couldn't remember jack diddly shit. I would watch people tell him something and then immediately he would start fucking it up. Like, immediately, and that would happen over and over and over again. His main moderators telling him, hey, Wolftone's going through this, and this is what's going to happen, and him coming up and saying the most bullshit, crap lies that you possibly could, because he heard that more recently than when people that he should have trusted told him the truth. So, sorry, like, a lot of people have been making fun of him for this for a long time, and hopefully getting out of a Slavic apartment and back into America. Eat more fucking blueberries, eat more fucking vegetables, take your fucking vitamins. Don't live like this sludge-brained idiot forever, for God's sakes. And I was telling him that on my way out. Like, for real, for real. Brent Daniels a vibe and a half, though. The guy cheers me up every time I watch him. Every once in a while, you can get a little psycho brain, slot brain, but that's just the nature of playing video games all the time. Is like, you're the main character, everybody else is quite literally part of an algorithm. And so, you know, that's a natural consequence to that. He's still one of the nicer video gamers. Yeah, and it's very, very, very entertaining, and I very, very, very much hope to see him be more successful than he is now, but I already see him, like, climbing up there, and that's good. You know, you establish yourself, you work hard, you stack on top of what you already got, you climb yourself up out of the pit. Climb yourself up out of the pit. And it looks like Brent Daniels been climbing himself up out of the pit for, like, 2 decades? Almost. And so he has the muscles to do so, and he's practiced and practiced and practiced to be 10 out of 10 on the charismatic scale. I can't see Keemstar's face without getting sick to my stomach, though. That L.A. Carnival Barker freak. God. Oh, God, I fucking hate him. I hate his voice. I hate his entire aura. Man, it is fucking nasty. I hate seeing that little gnome. But, hey, you know, things are changing. Internet's changing. And I'm happy to see that the forced meme of rainbow snowboarding goggles, it's going away. It's dropping off. I never found a single good person who, because it was all over Facebook for a while, like all over the place. And I never saw a good rainbow goggles Photoshop account. Just never. Not once. It's gonna be super funny to see, like, a lot of straight up psyops just evaporate as USAID dries up. Straight up, you know. If you're not willing to tell the 100% truth about that to your new king, instead of this old system of parliamentarism that didn't care where the money went as long as it helped the system, it prevented the new guy from getting in there. And he doesn't care about it because it tried to prevent him from getting in there. So, c'est la vie, bye-bye. Don't let that door hit your ass on the way out. Want to know why Japan ended up okay after World War II and Germany didn't? And why Italy dropped off a few decades later? It's the Masons. It's the Masons. Operation Gladio, injected a bunch of Masons deep into Italy, forcibly secularized it, previously with anti-fascist Bella Ciao style philosophy and culture, and then worked its way into the remaining Catholic institutions through Operation Gladio. And Operation Gladio was a very interesting study. A lot of more people are talking about it recently. But what it did is, I've been talking about this for months, so I'm very, very glad to see that. What it did was trick the Catholics into thinking that their number one enemy, the communists, were dangerous and threatening enough to team up with literal Satan-worshipping Masons. Because in the 33rd degree of Freemasonry, you sell your soul to the devil. And they believe in archdemon called Yaldabaoth. They say that that's God. And so they have this, polytheistic and deliberately obfuscated horizon of religion, of the supernatural. And it's one of the reasons why Common Era is now the term that people are using in the scientific studies, because Edo Domini would mean that Jesus, who is part of the three, which has been aped repeatedly by the Masons, part of the Trinity that makes up God, Holy Spirit, God, and Jesus, that is the reign of 2025 years that we've been living in. They're forcibly injecting Common Era into the literature, specifically so that people have a darkened, obfuscated view of God. But that's what Nietzsche was talking about. Nietzsche said that around the corner of God dying was a worse chaos and torment and disaster of anything humanity has ever experienced. And he was 100% right. And they forcibly, deliberately misquote him on that over and over and over again. Try and paint him as some sort of a God-denying atheist because they want to obfuscate God from the viewpoint of the common man. So they inject Common Era into it instead of Edo Domini. That's what it is. And Japan ended up okay because they weren't Masonic freaks. Japan ended up okay. And you get a lot of communist theology in China from the triads, the Chinese Masons. The proto-triads was like the three societies group, and they get a lot of their shit from Masonry. Also, something to look up is the Taiping Heavenly Rebellion. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that in the future. Get a lot of people. You can lose a hand and still be you, but your hand is gone, right? But you're still you. And your consciousness doesn't extend into your hand because it's attached to you. So people used to think that the soul lied in your solar plexus. The Celts were the first people to suppose that the soul lied in the skull. And 10,000 years ago, we had things like the cult of the skull. That was the realization and veneration of that. But at the same time, nature can take two trees, grow them into one tree, and the roots of those two trees are still the same. Is it a hybrid? Is it one? Was it ever two? These are questions. These are things to chew on. These are things that get the noggin jogging. These are things that get the almonds activated. So just something to think about. The Troubles in Ireland was a civil war between the James Connolly-style communists and the IRA of Theobald Wolfe-Tone. Just want to defend their people from slavery and subjugation. And the IRA of Wolfe-Tone won out over the Connolly communists. And I'm very happy about that. It's the same difference between the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his style of morality, universal morality, and the horrifically racist terrorists in the Black Panthers that were buddy-buddy with communists. Though there are smatterings of good in any group, broken clocks right 2 times a day, that's law. Being a communist is a terrible way of starting your intellectual journey. I was so much better off just biking around and deep dicking dames and knowing I didn't know shit than that. People that don't grow out of that, they end up stunting their development, or they don't grow out of that because their development was stunted. And this is usually caused by factory-made neurotransmitters being accepted as fine. You ever heard that phrase, store-bought is fine, when it comes to pills that people take every morning? I've lost friends over this shit. I've gotten in arguments with people over this shit. But store-bought is not fine. And you will permanently stunt your mental development and your ability to conceptualize things. Want to know why? You have to adapt. You can adapt. People in prisons and concentration camps manage to adapt. I told you about how generous and ingenuitive people were in maximum security at my local jail. And they will make $1 out of 2 cents and do it 10 times a day and do it with a smile on their face. And that just goes to show, like, you really can do a lot with a little. And you don't need a lot to do a little. And you can have a good attitude regardless of the whole horrible shit that happens to you. So you can't just say, oh, I'm going to cheat my brain, I'm going to hack myself with these pharmaceuticals. Whether or not you have an endless supply of pharmaceuticals, say you're Israel, you're still atrophying the natural muscles that you use to pull up and pull out, that you use to surf the natural waves up and down, that you use to hunker down when you're going through a down spell and brighten up when you're getting back up. Those muscles atrophy inside of you, just as the same as the neurotransmitters that your brain naturally produces atrophy if you have a long enough exposure to a supplement of them. And then you have a real fucking problem, right? In that same exact way, if it's not a necessity, then the only use is therapy, like a crutch. And you don't walk around with a crutch for the rest of your life just because you broke a leg. Right? It would suck. But if you do, it's an encumbrance, and the muscles in your leg will get weaker well after the time that they've healed. Facts. Sugar is literally a drug. You probably already know, but caffeine is a drug as well. And you gotta look out for that. Because, as I said, your adrenaline, your pancreas and how it works, all of this will get weaker in you the more you use tools to force your body to do things at a artificial pace. I would say artificial pace. Because a natural pace will give you everything you've ever needed forever. And when people fast and when people take vacations and escape the artificial constructs of the world, they find this out very, very quickly. And that's the thing, is that it's always with you. And there are ways to do good in terrible situations, but it's up to you to determine how best to do that, and to use your better judgment, and to think of things 3D, 4D, 3D. and tack into your challenges instead of using them as an excuse to make things worse in the long run, or tap out some temporary power for long-term negative consequence. You know how your mouth heals real quick when you bite it? That's just an expedited version of how your entire body regenerates. But, like your kidneys, it'll only heal if you let it. Your kidneys are constantly cycling stuff out, constantly cycling stuff out, constantly cycling stuff out. And they're constantly healing too, but they're also one of the most taxed parts of the body. And unlike the liver, they don't heal as aggressively. And so you need to be careful when it comes to, well, just basically anything that could clog, burst, or damage the very small, delicate sacs that blood flows into, filters out, and you can't overload that system. You cannot overload that system, even though if you do, you can heal unless you start flooding your body with hospital chemicals. Sorry. Like, I'm not exactly sure how dialysis works, but it's probably not something that heals your kidneys over a long period of time. However, as I said, that's something I haven't done hardly any studies on, so I really shouldn't talk about dialysis in particular, but I just know for a fact, I know for a fact as somebody who has tried to kill themselves by taking massive amounts of Benadryl and basically severely damaged my kidneys, over a couple of years, your shit'll heal up. And then it'll be like nothing's at all. Every cell in your entire body, 7 years to completely regenerate. And I bet you, cells in your mouth regenerate super quickly. That's why your mouth isn't full of scar tissues, even though you're biting the inside of your mouth. And people might have scar tissue in like their cheeks at some times, but then like that will heal up eventually if you find a way to release the tension in that general area. I had that when I was younger. But like, I bet the kidneys are some of the slowest healing cells, and they're probably very, very complex in that way. But your liver cells are wild because they heal quickly, and they have like all this complex enzymatic functionality in them. The liver is something to really study, although, you know, I'm not an endocrinologist. I'm more of nutritionist, essentially. But anyways, got a little off on a tangent there. Here's a little something. iDubbbz was never funny. Dumb people elevated him because he was an edgy boy who said the N-word, but he was never funny, he was never interesting, he was never cool. Ever. Not once. He was never cool. Never interesting, never funny. And you know what? The term lol cow, it implies the existence of a lol bull. That inseminates the lol cow to create lol calves. Ah! You could have chosen a more neutral term, but hey, this is what you're stuck with. Man, it tells you. If I had a Dodge 150 or 1500, excuse me, I would feel like a total phony. If I got that instead of a Ford F-150, I'd get imposter syndrome real bad. Such shitty trucks. Oh my god, you hate to see it. You hate to see it. And you know, I can understand you get a Dodge body and you engine swap it to something better, but oh god. Imagine falling for the big truck meme. Imagine getting a Hummer. Imagine getting a Dodge. Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. All right, y'all. Take care.